Yep, we're still doing blues. um, Welcome to part 3 of the blues workshop series that we've been doing. Part 3 out of um, this week, we're going to be looking at two different things: 12 bar variations, as well as the art of the turnaround. So let's get started with some of these 12 bar variations. Okay, now in part 1, we talked about the 12 bar blues progression. Well, there are many different variations, as we said before, that you can use with a 12 bar blues progression. What we've done so far is 4 bars of 1, 2 bars of 4, 2 bars of 1 again, and then a bar of a 5 chord, and then a 4 chord, and then a bar of 1, and then a bar split between 1 and 5, typically, and those last 2 bars being your turnaround section. But that's kind of the typical 12 bar blues. Again, many different variations. We'll take a look at a couple here. One is known as a slow change, which is what we just did. The first 4 bars staying on that 1 chord. A quick change variation is when you throw a 4 chord in those first 4 bars somewhere before you go back to the 1. So instead of 4 bars of A, you do like a bar of A, a bar of D, and then back to 2 bars of A. Before going on, to the rest of it. So slow and quick change. There's another one where kind of towards the end of the 12 bar blues, when you get to the 9th measure, that's typically when you move up to your 5. So in A, that's going to be E. So one variation, the normal one that we did before was, bar 9 is E, bar 10, you walk down to your 4 where your D. In one variation, you can stay on that 5 chord instead of walking back down to 4. So and then start back over. So you don't have to walk back down to that 4. Another version, we'll do this one in E, just to change things up. You'll hear guys like Jimmy Reed or Jimmy Vaughn do something like this, where when you get to that 5 chord on that 9th measure, instead of using a B as the bass note, it'll still do the the 5 and the 6 walk up, but it'll leave the A as the bass note or the 4 note as the bass. So when you get to B, instead of doing that, still do these changes here, just leave A as the bass note. Keep going that way. So that's another one. I'll have those 2 up on the website. All right, then there's the art of the turnaround, one of the most important parts of a 12 bar blues. As we talked about in part 1, the turnaround is typically the last 2 measures of a 12 bar progression. This is the part where you throw in a little riff, a little chord change, that kind of signals that, hey, we're about to start this over again. Kind of the song that never ends kind of thing. There are tons and tons of different things you can do for the turnaround. And it doesn't always have to be, just the last 2 measures. You can use like the last 4 and do a whole turnaround sequence there. Something very common, known as the Chicago turnaround, popular with Chicago-style blues, hence the name, is when you're on the 1 chord, and you do a little bass line walk up to the 5 chord that kind of turns everything around. So that, again, you're staying on A. And you do this little walk up starting at B, and then this little chromatic, a blues walk up from your D note up to an E flat. Calling it an E flat because this is a blues scale, so it's a flat 5, so we're going to go with E flat. To E, and from there you can use fingers 1, 2, 3. That way you can make your E7 chord. You can also use horn riffs, the riffs that we talked about last time in part 2, and use those in your turnarounds. So using horn voicings in turnarounds, very, very common. This is what I'm going to show you is a 4 measure turnaround, starting at measure 9. of your 12-bar blues and going through measure 12. The voicings we're going to use, we're going to start with an E9, being our 5 chord, we're in A. We're going to do the half-step embellishment that we talked about in part 2 as well. Starting at D9, dropping down to C sharp, back up to D. Up to an A6, which we talked about the 6th chord in part 2 as well. Back to the D9, then back to the A6. And then another half-step embellishment starting at F9, sliding down to an E. So that's what it sounds like. Turn the metronome on, show you what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Again. So, there. So I'll have both of those turnaround examples up on the website in tab form for you to look at. So, you know, you don't have to use these chord voicings necessarily or walking bass lines to do a turnaround. You know, there are these little licks that you can play as well. Just really simple riffs, you know, something like that to turn around, where you go from the major third all the way down. You just do this chromatic walk down to 3, flat 3, 2, and 1. So you'd have like a... You know, something like that. You can also start at a 7, a flat 7 rather, and walk down to the 5. And that's just going, you know, again chromatically, just starting at the 8th fret, just going 8, 7, 6, 5. My personal favorite is starting at the 5 note in A, which is going to be E, and then walking down, going from a 5 to a flat 5 to a 4, and then to a major third. Another variation I like to use with that is to hammer on from the minor third onto the major third. Alright, so I'm going to leave you with this, a little practice turnaround progression. Starting, you know, think of it this way. You're going to start at measure 9 and just do like the first couple of measures of the 12-bar blues. So you're starting at, you know, doing the last 4 measures, wrapping around doing the first couple, just to practice that turnaround and to practice just really that transition. So it'll go like this. Since we're starting at the 9th measure, starting with the 5 chord, we're going to be in A, so we're going to start with E. We're going to go down to the 4 chord, which is D, and we're going to hit A. Then we're going to do a little turnaround lick. Again, a very, very common little riff. It's really cool though. Done all in triplets. Triplet, 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 and then a little half-step embellishment, and then turning back around to our 1 chord. So it'll sound like this. 2. Let me do this. Let me turn the metronome on, because that's always fun. 2, 3, 4. And then you can just stop there and start back over and just work on that turnaround, because that's usually where a lot of the action is when it comes to the guitar part. All right, now I hope that helped you out. This concludes part 3. So get to practicing those turnarounds and try to find some different 12-bar blues variations of your own. I'll see you next time.